Okay, we'll start now. See, this is a quite important class, particularly for those students who are preparing for 2026 exam. So in this class, what we will be doing is we will be basically discussing the strategy with which the student has to prepare, the books, etc., which they should read, and also uh, what can be the way of writing good answers, what examiners expect from the student. So all those things we will discuss in roughly about 1 hour. So this is going to be quite important class as far as the next year exam is concerned, for those students who are preparing maybe for next year or even next to next year also. So at least they will understand the basics of strategy for philosophy optional for UPSC. So I will just uh, share the document, and then we can discuss accordingly. Uh, See, I have uh, 3, 4 documents to share. So one by one we can discuss all. So first is basically uh, detailed strategy as far as philosophy optional is concerned. See, the students, I am sure, who are watching this video and joined this class have already decided to select the philosophy as an optional for the UPSC. Uh, now, the role of optional in UPSC is very, very critical. That we should first try to understand, because uh, you know, all other papers are common for all the students. So actual differentiation takes place with the optional subject. So if your optional is good, and if it can score about 55 to 60% marks, uh, I am sure, other things being common, the student will find name in this selected list. So what I want to say is the choice of optional is very, very strategic and important. Uh, Definitely, if you intelligently select the optional, uh, you are going to qualify the examination with ease. But if you are not able to select, and if you take wrong subject, definitely there will be problem in the exam. Now, why one should select philosophy as an optional subject? Let us first try to understand that. Uh, See, philosophy is usually selected, I have seen, by all kinds of candidates, not only those candidates who have studied philosophy earlier, but even science stream candidates, engineering candidates, all those candidates, they do select philosophy as an optional. Now, this is one of the most balanced, compact, and conceptually rich subjects. Uh, Now, why it's very, very strategic? Now, let us try to understand what are the benefits basically of selecting, or you can say what are the positive points, what are pros and cons of philosophy optional. That also we can discuss now, because not only all positive points are there, some negative points are also there. Now, first thing is philosophy is a strategic optional. Why? Because it studies fundamental questions about life, knowledge, truth, morality, and existence. So, any student or any individual or any human being would also like to know in general these uh, issues pertaining to life. So, therefore, this becomes a very, very fundamental subject and quite interesting also accordingly. Now, uh, for UPSC, this subjects is very, very short and well defined syllabus. So this is one very positive criteria for selecting philosophy, because syllabus is usually you can prepare, if you are a serious candidate, in 3-4 months you can prepare the syllabus. So short and well defined helps in preparing quite in compact time. It overlaps with ethics, essay, and interview. Now, this is again second positive point, very, very important, because particularly philosophy second paper, socio-political philosophy, many topics are very, very common in essay. And also, I mean, in general, philosophy also helps in ethics as well as in interview also. Because once you understand Kant properly, once you understand Jainism, Buddhism, or Gandhi or Ambedkar, so it will be easier for you to understand ethics also. So it helps in GS paper for ethics, it helps in essay, it helps also in interview. Particularly, as I told earlier, so second paper of philosophy, because it has topics like justice, equality, duty, secularism, etc., which are directly related topics for essay. Now, this subject is also, as I told earlier, also suitable for all backgrounds. It's not only strictly art subject, but it's also suitable for all background students, particularly engineers, doctors, science graduates. They have taken this subject and they have consistently scored high marks also. Now, this philosophy subject also improves thinking and expression, because you learn to analyze issues from multiple perspectives. You learn to use logic and communicate the ideas effectively. So this helps in other papers also, but particularly in essay and also in interview. Then same thing now, we will try to summarize. So first advantage, shortest and static syllabus. Shortest I have already discussed. Now static syllabus is also very, very important, because usually in all other subjects, syllabus keeps on continuously changing. But in philosophy, because about 33 years, 34 years back, I also appeared. The syllabus was almost 99% same, which is also only at that point of time, the both papers were 300 marks each. Now, I mean, that has become 250. So it's static syllabus because no current affairs, except a few questions. I mean, in socio-political philosophy do have some current affairs tinge, but most of the other topics, whether it is Indian philosophy or Western philosophy or philosophy of religion, the syllabus is static. Easy integration with other papers I've already discussed: GS4, ethics, essay, interview also, because ethical reasoning, governance, and human behavior questions are often philosophical. Next is clarity, precision, and logic. This also we have discussed, because once you study properly philosophy, you will be more logical, you will be more precise and effective in your arguments, in your discussions, in your writings, and your views also will become more clear. You will be able to give rational answers. Then equal ground for all, this also I have discussed, because non-humanities also I mean, one more thing I can tell you, because see, science, math, history, etc., you study in class 11th, class 12th, class 9th, 10th also. But philosophy is one subject which is studied at mostly graduation level only. So therefore, almost all students of philosophy become equal. Whether you have studied philosophy for 2 years before or 3 years before giving the exam, or whether you have not studied. So, I mean, and since the syllabus is quite small, in 3-4 months, any non-philosophy student also can cover it easily. So therefore, philosophy is a very high scoring subject with smart preparation. Now, what is smart preparation? We will try to understand subsequently, but this is what has happened. So, one more thing I can tell you, UPSC questions are repetitive and conceptual. So, if you go through last 10 years PYQs, you will be able to understand a number of questions have been repeated. I mean, sometimes in different wordings, sometimes in same wordings, but still you can understand that questions are being repeated. So therefore, it's I mean, if you are smartly preparing, if you are well prepared, and if you are able to write your answers effectively, scoring 280 plus marks or 300 marks can be a reality. And if you get 300 or 280 plus marks in optional, and other subjects are, I mean, uh, on an average also, your name will definitely appear in the list. However, there are some negative points also. Now, let us try to understand that. For example, every subject has some cons. So, here also, now some theories, especially Western, are abstract. For example, Hegel, Kant. And I can tell you one more thing. Usually, students find Western philosophy, that is part A of question, I mean, paper one, little difficult because, as you know, the structure of paper, uh, part A, section A of paper one will be Western philosophy, then we will have Indian philosophy. Then in paper two, part A will be socio-political philosophy, and then philosophy of religion. So usually students do find Western philosophy little difficult because they have not come across those terms or those philosophers earlier. They have not heard also. So usually, because they are not acquainted with their ideas, so they usually find it little tougher. However, solution can be visual charts, flow diagrams, simple language notes, etc. can be solution, which we will discuss subsequently also. Then in philosophy, analytical questions are quite tricky. So analytical questions, nowadays comparative questions, critical analytical questions, they have increased the number and they can be quite tricky. However, practice of previous year's questions uh, and model answers, etc., can definitely overcome this obstacle. Then in philosophy, you require clear writing skills because unless you are able to write your answers well, you will not score marks. Now, for this, answer writing practice is very, very important. Continuously, whatever you study, please definitely you prepare the notes also, and you also do the writing practice also. Now, uh, before we go to other subcomponents of this strategy, now if you see the success rate and trend analysis of the candidate data. So every year about 6 to 7% students, 6 to 7% of the students who appeared in philosophy have qualified for appointment. For example, 2024, 480 students appeared, 32 have cleared. Similarly, other years also you can see. So it's roughly 6 to 7% or 8%. In some years, it's 8%, some year it's between 6 to 7. So if you see the data for last roughly about 10 years, you will understand that it's about 7% on an average. So data shows that philosophy maintains a steady success rate of around 6 to 8%. 2024 data is tentative because UPSC report is still out to be out. So this has been collected from various sources. Now, similarly, if you see the UPSC toppers also, because there have been various toppers from UPSC with philosophy optional. So these are, if you can see, right from 11 to 23, and as high as rank 2 and rank 3 also they got with philosophy optional as a subject. So therefore, philosophy as, I mean, it's quite good scoring, and definitely if you see good ranks also can be achieved through philosophy. Now let us try to understand the syllabus in detail, because then only we can devise what strategy we will try to follow. Now, as you know, already most of you may be knowing, philosophy optional consists of two papers of 250 marks each, just like other optionals also. Both are theory-based papers and test basically comprehension, reasoning, and articulation. Now, in paper one, as I told, Indian philosophy is there. Indian philosophy, there are two kinds of schools are there. Basically, they call it Astic and Nastic, that is orthodox and heterodox. Astic means who believe in Vedas, and Nastic means who do not believe in Vedas. It's not believing in God or not God. I mean, this is not the, here Astic and Nastic means believing in Vedas. So basically, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisesik, Mimamsa, Vedant, these are Astic schools. Similarly, Buddhism, Jainism, Charvak is uh, Gnostic schools. Now, what are key themes in Indian philosophy? Theory of reality, then nature of self, then causation and liberation, then epistemology, which means knowledge, pramana, pramanaphala, then concept of God and moral law. So these, I mean, basically, these are main focus points of Indian philosophy. Now, section B, Western philosophy, if you see, main thinkers in Western philosophy, Plato and Aristotle. Then rationalist thinkers, Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. Then empiricist thinkers, Locke, Berkeley, and Hume. Then Kant is there, who has synthesized both rationalism and empiricism. Then Hegel, and then recent thinkers of 19th and 20th century mostly. Moore, Russell, Wittgenstein, logical positivist, existentialist, phenomenologist, etc. So all these thinkers, and core areas in this is basically epistemology and metaphysics is anyway core areas for any philosophical study. Epistemology means theory of knowledge, metaphysics means theory of reality. So every philosopher has given some theory of knowledge and some theory of reality. So you study metaphysics as well as epistemology with respect to that. Now, the similar ethics and values also of these philosophers or these schools. Then we will come to paper 2. Paper 2, again, you have socio-political philosophy, as I told earlier also. Now, in these main topics are equality, justice, liberty, rights, sovereignty, democracy, etc. So these are important topics, basic topics. So any students who are earlier they have studied political science as well as law also, they may be knowing all these topics. And for essay also, anyway you have to essay and other GS papers, you have to study these topics. Then Marxism, Gandhi, Sarvodaya, then Indian thinkers like Aurobindo and Ambedkar, etc. Then modern concerns, for example, caste, gender, environment, globalization, etc. So all these are there in socio-political philosophy. And mostly, if you recollect, GS paper 2 topics, a number of topics have been covered in this. Philosophy of religion explores religious belief, spiritual experience, rationally, etc. Now, what are major themes? Nature and function of religion, proofs for existence of God, ontological, cosmological, teleological, moral proofs, etc. Problem of evil, faith, reason, and revelation, moksha, nirvana, immortality, etc. So basically, this is, I mean, in summary, you can say the main syllabus of philosophy. Now, what should be the preparation strategy? Now, let us try to go step by step. Now, in step 1, in month 1 and 2, what one student should do? He should build conceptual clarity. So, I mean, if you ask me, it's easy to start with Indian philosophy, because Indian philosophy, most of the students are acquainted. They might have heard at least some or the other uh, point in that philosophy. So they will feel little familiar. So start with Indian philosophy and then move to Western philosophy. Because directly if you go to Western philosophy, perhaps you may feel that it's more abstract, little difficult. little unknown topics are there. So therefore, it's always better to start with Indian philosophy. Now, always make comparative notes. Now, this is again very, very important because nowadays trend is comparative, analytical, critical approach. So you have to make comparative notes right from the beginning, so that in practice also you incorporate that, and in actual exam also when the questions come, it will be easy for you to deal with those questions. So example also, comparative notes, for example, Satkaryavad, Asatkaryavad is there. Similarly, Western philosophy, empiricism versus rationalism is there. So if you prepare comparative notes, it will be easy for you to recollect also, to impress the examiner also, write also. And here the critical thing is, try to understand the ideas logically. Because if you, in Indian philosophy as well as in Western philosophy also, if you try to link one philosopher with the subsequent philosopher, or one school with subsequent school, it will be easy for you to understand. For example, in Western philosophy, rationalism, if you link with empiricism, so because empiricism came after rationalism, and then Kant was there to synthesize both. So if you start linking in that logic, perhaps it will be easy for you to understand. Similar thing is for Indian philosophy also. So and that's what is the easy way of understanding. Now, what is step 2? Make concise notes. Prepare short, structured notes for each topic. Now, each topic, how we will divide the topic? First, definition will be there, then main idea will be there, then arguments will be there, then criticism, then comparative view, and then contemporary relevance. So these are basically various subcomponents of a topic for which you need to prepare the notes, and you try to understand and try to remember also. So if you can prepare a one-page summary, it will be very good, and then try to elaborate that. Or if your note is a little longer, then you prepare longer note also and summary also. Now, what is step 3? Integrate with GS and essay, because some topics definitely you can do, because then it will be easy for you to cover those papers also. So sometimes ethics paper is connected, sometimes essay paper is connected, and interview also. For example, if you talk of justice, if you talk of equality, if you talk of liberty, if you talk of gender issues, if you talk of caste issues, all these topics are very, very relevant as far as essay and interviews is concerned. Now, this integrated preparation saves time and strengthens your GS papers as well. Now, what is step 4? Practice answer writing. This is very, very important, because sometimes even if you have studied and you know the things, but if you don't practice writing, you will not be able to get good marks. And as you know, there are basically 3 kinds of questions in exam. So one is 150 words, then about 225 words, then 300 words. And I keep on telling the students, you have to prepare in such a way that in actual exam, if 300 words question comes, which you have practiced for 300 words comes for 150, you are able to reduce the size. If 150 you have practiced and it came for 300 words, you will be able to elaborate that. So accordingly, you have to be prepared for that. So start with short notes, then move to 250 word or 500 word answer. Then practice structuring answers with introduction, and this strategy is also very, very important. Introduction, explanation, criticism, and conclusion. So earlier also, we have this definition, main idea, arguments, comparative view, and contemporary relevance. This is for preparing notes, and this is for writing answers. Introduction, sometimes very brief introduction, because suppose 150 word question is there, so it may be even one sentence introduction, or conclusion also maybe one, because if you devote more number of words, it may not be very useful. So Introduction, explanation, criticism, conclusion. And focus on clarity, logic, and examples. Wherever possible, examples is important. And then what is step 5? Revision and mock tests. This is for last 2 months. So revise your short notes repeatedly, whatever you have prepared. Attempt previous year's questions. UPSC often repeats, I have already told, this is very, very important. With slight twist, they repeat the questions. And join some good test series or self-evaluate after next year's prelims exam. I will also start a test series, so you can join that also. So join some good test series so that you can evaluate yourself. Now, what is recommended book list for philosophy? Indian philosophy. See, I have not recommended more number of books, less number. You read less number, but try to understand that and try to assimilate whatever you are reading. So, C.D. Sharma book is quite a good book, Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy. Then an introduction to Indian philosophy, it's Chatterjee. Then IGNOU notes are quite good. So if you can get hold of IGNOU notes, that is good. And then Hiriana, some topics may be relevant from Hiriana, Outlines of Indian Philosophy. Now in Western philosophy, main Tatan Chatterjee is quite important book. Massey is quite important. Burton Russell book, you can take help selectively. It's not the whole need not to be, your whole study need not be based on that, but selectively some topics, this thing you can take. Similarly, some topics from Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy also you can take, particularly for modern thinkers. So that you can do. And then again, IGNOU notes are quite important. Now, socio-political philosophy, now books which have been recommended may not be sufficient because you have to read newspapers, you have to read other political science books, you have to read other sociology books, but still these books will give you a good idea. So O.P. Gauba, Political Theory, then Bhargava and Acharya, and then for some topics, Stanford Encyclopedia also is quite important. Similarly, Philosophy of Religion, Massey's book is quite important. And John Hick book again for some topics. Then IGNOU notes, quite important. Now for answer writing, UPSC PYQs you have to obtain. This is quite important component in your preparation. Writing practice, you can obtain toppers copies. Several coaching institutes are already floating toppers copies, so you can get it. Then test series paper, some good test series paper I have already told you can join, and that will be a good resource for you for preparation. So this is basically about a 4 months plan. Now, same thing now, book wise, it has been broken, this 4-month plan. Earlier, we were discussing what you should do in first month, second month, third month, fourth month. Now, same thing regarding study material, since I have already told. So now what one should do with that? So first month, what you should do, Indian philosophy, because Indian philosophy is easy to understand. So you have to start with Indian philosophy. And C.D. Sharma book and IGNOU notes are quite important as far as this is concerned. Second month, you can start Western philosophy and then socio-political and philosophy of religion. Socio-political philosophy as is quite important. It will integrate with essay paper also. Philosophy of religion will also integrate with ethics paper. So this is also quite important. In 4th month, you have to devote most time for revision and answer writing practice. So this you can make 4 months strategy with these books and this. Now, answer writing techniques for philosophy. Now, another, I will be discussing little more detail also, but here also let us try to understand in brief. Writing philosophy answers, you have to, first thing you have to be very, very clear. Clarity is very, very important. So, introduction. So, as soon as some question comes, you have to start with its definition, if you know, if you can remember. So clarity is very, very important as far as introduction is. You cannot be vague. If you are vague, the examiner will understand and you are bound to lose the marks. Then concept, the main body of the exposition, what you are going to do. Is also one example also have been given so that you can read, because notes anyway I will be placing in the group, Telegram and WhatsApp group, so you can go through. But the point is, first is introduction, then concept, that is a main exposition, then criticism is also very, very important. But in criticism, one more thing I would like to tell, it should be very balanced criticism. It cannot be one-sided. If there are some positive points, you have to bring it out. If negative points are there, that also you need to bring it out. So accordingly, you have to go through. And then finally conclude. Conclude with insight or relevance. This is very important. So, and most important thing which I keep on telling students, always underline key terms, use philosopher names, and connect ideas logically. So philosophers' names and also references also, because their books, etc. also you have to quote. Now, definitely if you understand the question properly and if you are well prepared, you will not write vague answers. So writing general answers or general essays, because that is not required here. So these kind of mistakes one need to avoid. Ignoring criticism or counter arguments is another mistake. Then using vague terms, I've already told, vague terms, if you use, examiner will understand very easily, and definitely you are not going to fetch good marks. Practice resources, previous year's questions, very, very important. Mock tests, mind maps. So these are very, very important. So if you have to prepare well, this can be a good asset for you. Scoring 300 plus is little difficult, but not impossible. If you are able to master 60 to 70% topics with crystal clarity, which may be enough for 80% questions, you are going to score quite good marks. Writing philosophically precise answers also helps a lot. Revise your notes. Earlier I have told that you prepare 1-page notes. So revise your notes at least 3-4 times so that you remember most of the points. Quote thinkers wherever relevant. Balance both Indian and Western papers. So this is also again important. Then you will be able to definitely get 280 plus marks. Now, in conclusion, what I can say is, philosophy is a short, conceptual, and high return optional. If a student focuses on clarity, writes structured answers, revises repeatedly, and integrates with ethics and essay. So this is very, very important. Now, this is in brief the strategy. Now, further analysis of PYQs, because in this strategy also PYQs are very, very important, because then only you can identify which are the important topics. So now we'll just try to learn PYQ analysis also. So now let us go to that. Now, I have analyzed PYQs for last 15 years, right from 2011 to 2025. And each topic, I mean, if you go with Western philosophy, Indian philosophy, socio-political philosophy, so each topic wise, which questions have been asked, that I have tried to mention. So if you see, questions have been repeatedly asked. For example, let us see Plato's theory of forms. In different forms, how many times it has been asked, right, in last 15 years, if you see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times this has been asked. Similarly, significance of Aristotle's doctrine of form and matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So, similar, other topics are also there. So, what my suggestion to students will be, please prepare PYQs topic wise. I've already done it. If you want to use it, please use it. If you want to prepare yourself, do prepare it. So this I have done for all the topics. If you can see rationalism, for example, Leibniz theory of pre-established harmony, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times. Then Spinoza's conception of freedom, 1, 2, 3 times. Similarly, other topics also, empiricism. In empiricism, if you see Hume's criticism of theory of causation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times this has come repeatedly. Then Locke's categorization of primary and secondary qualities, 1, 2, 3 times. Similarly, if you go with other topics, for example, synthetic a priori judgment of Kant, 1, 2, 3 times. Then if you see other topics, for example, Hegel, if you see explain Hegelian dialectical method and show how it is useful in explaining the historical development process. So this dialectics of Hegel, it has come 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times. Then Moore, Russell, early Wittgenstein. So similarly, I have done for all, and this is Western philosophy. I'm quickly turning the paper pages so that just to show you, I will not discuss it because this is quite simple to understand. Now, Indian philosophy again I have done. Jainism, then Buddhism, then you have Sankhya. Now, here in the heading, I have also written what are the topics mentioned in the syllabus. For example, Sankhya, Prakriti, Purusha, causation, and liberation. This is mentioned in syllabus. So, accordingly, we have done it. Similarly, if you see Nyaya Vaisesik, which is very, very important chapter as far as Indian philosophy is concerned. Then Charvak, Mimamsa, and again, very, very important Vedanta, schools of Vedanta, including Shankar's Vedanta, Ramanuja. Then we have Aurobindo, evolution and involution and integral yoga of Aurobindo. Then we come to philosophy of religion. So this I have done. Problem of evil. Religious experiences, nature and object, and all topics we have covered. So religion without God. Now, if you see the one question, can atheism be a religion? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times it has been asked. Religion and morality. And all these topics are quite directly related with ethics paper. And also many times essay paper also. Religious pluralism and problem of absolute truth. Nature of religious language. This is again an important topic as far as philosophy of religion is concerned. Then we will come to socio-political philosophy, which is quite important, not only from philosophy perspective, but also from essay and interview perspective. So equality, justice, and liberty. Then we have sovereignty, Austin, Bodin, Lasky, Kautilya, etc. So basically, what I want to say, I have done for last 15 years, just to understand which topics are being repeatedly asked. Obviously, with little difference, little change of words or something like that. So that preparation can be, focused preparation we can do. So this is what has been done. Now, after going for this, One more thing I just want to tell you, because this year's paper 2020 2025 exam paper was little different from previous year's papers. So I have analyzed this 2025 detailed analysis. I have done earlier class. I have already explained this, but in this orientation class also I just want to explain very briefly what was the difference from earlier paper and how our strategy should accordingly change. So this is the relevance is this only. Now, what is more? I mean, or you can say specific characteristic of this paper, because structure has remained same. I mean, number of questions or marks allotted, it has not changed. But what has changed then? Now let us try to understand. First thing is critical evaluation, comparison, and application. So I will say first point is enhanced analytical expectations are seen in this paper. So while earlier papers allowed relatively descriptive definition based answers, particularly last 2-3 years papers and 2025 actually sharply elevated the importance of critical evaluation, comparison, and application. So while preparing, you have to focus on this. Unless you focus on this, unless you prepare your notes like that, unless you practice writing answers like that, you will not be able to answer properly. Then technical rigor and terminology, that also has increased. So they have started using precise Sanskrit terms, particularly in Indian philosophy, and exact classical definitions. So which means you have to go a little deeper while studying. Your conceptual clarity has to be better. So this is again very, very important change. Next is focus on philosophy of language and contemporary issues. This is another important change, or its intensity has increased. Now, same thing I have compared section wise. 2023 what has happened, 2024 what has happened, 2025 what has happened. So for example, if you see 2025, analytical integration is very, very important here. Conceptual clarity is very, very important here. So comparison and critique is very, very important here. So this has happened in 2025. So accordingly, our preparation strategy also should be. So do not skip any school or philosopher. This is first strategy. Second, strong conceptual mapping, whether it is tables or points of difference, etc., is required. So comparison or criticize two philosophers' ideas. Accordingly, you do answer writing practice. Use of precise technical language, particularly in Indian philosophy, Sanskrit terms have to be used. In Western philosophy, Greek, Latin, or English terms have to be used. So new and rising expectations. What are those expectations? Be ready to use critiques, both Western and Indian, and frame them in comparative perspectives. So comparisons, use of contemporary example or analogies often advantageous, and this is rising trend. So accordingly, short notes should be prepared on contemporary philosophy of language, verification, and analytic philosophy for compulsory short question answers. So basically, students have to be critical, comparative, and conceptual. So this is the takeaway basically from 2025 exam. So this is what I just wanted to tell you, because this already I have discussed in earlier class, but once you keep this in mind, your preparation strategy will accordingly be modified. Now, after going through all this strategy, analysis, etc. Now, I have identified about 70, 80 topics which are very, very important and very, very important as far as focus study is required. For example, Plato, these three topics: theory of forms, theory of recollection or theory of reminiscence, then Plato's analogy of cave. Aristotle, accordingly, there are 5 topics. Then we have Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz. So this I have done for both papers and all 4 sections. For example, Kant is very, very important. So you see number of topics also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 topics from Kant have been identified. Hegel is there, Russell, Moore, logical positivism, Wittgenstein, Husserl, existentialism. This is again a very important topic, existentialism. So again, 7, 8 subtopics are there. Then Queen, Strawson. Similarly, Indian philosophy. In Indian philosophy also, if you see, so in Western philosophy, there are 67 topics have been identified for focus study. In Indian philosophy, again, if you see, Nyaya Vaisesika is very, very important. So a number of topics are there. About again 8 to 10 topics are there in Nyaya Vaisesika. Very important chapter as far as Indian philosophy. And all this have been arrived after detailed analysis of PYQs, because if you analyze, you will know okay, there are repeated questions are being asked on the same topic, same subtopic. So accordingly, it has been done. You see again, Advaita Vedanta, schools of Vedanta, very, very important. So accordingly, roughly about 8 to 10 topics will be, subtopics will be there. Then philosophy of religion. Then you have socio-political philosophy also, a socio-political philosophy. So basically, for each subsection, for example, here socio-political philosophy, roughly 43 subtopics are there. So this have been identified after detailed analysis of syllabus and PYQs. So once you do that, you will yourself also understand this also. If you want to go by this, which I have analyzed, you can as well go. But if you want to yourself analyze also, you can do that. Analyze detailed syllabus in detail and then PYQs. Particularly last 10 years. I have done for last 15 years. You can do for last 10 years also, because 10 years is also quite reasonable period to understand the consistency of questions. Now, after identifying, after a detailed analysis of syllabus and also identifying the topics, also preparing or discussing the detailed strategy, now I just want to tell a few things about writing answers, because accordingly then you have to prepare your notes also. So for example, I prepared one checklist for writing answers. In actual exam, I prepared, of course, but once you keep this in mind, definitely your short notes or one-page notes or one-pagers will be more or less keep these things in mind. So this is answer writing checklist. Because how to write good answers, many students asked me. So, this is what has been done. So first, most important is directive compliance. Answer the question, not the topic. See, most of the students, what they feel is, for example, they have prepared very well on the topic. So they write everything which they know about the topic, irrespective of what has been asked. So that is, then you are going to definitely lose marks in that. So try to read the question very carefully. Try to analyze what has been asked, and then accordingly you have to frame your answer. Now, usually, if you see 3, 4 I have given, but sometimes directive is discuss, sometimes example, examine, sometimes critically evaluate, sometimes explain, so sometimes differentiate. So all these things you have to understand very clearly. So for example, discuss. So discuss means balanced explanation you have to give. Examine means identify causes, consequences, underlying assumptions, etc. Critically evaluate means present both strengths and weaknesses of the exposition along with a reasoned conclusion. So this is very important. Please try to understand that directive compliance is very, very important. Usually, if critically evaluated is there, 60% exposition, 40% words are spent for critique and conclusion. Now, second important point is philosophical clarity and conceptual precision. So, if some definition, some terms needs to be defined, you have to define properly. Avoiding vague statements is also important. And if you are writing in changing paragraphs one by one, then internal contradiction needs to be avoided, because if in argument there is internal contradiction, or one paragraph is not supporting the other paragraph, you are not going to get better marks. Then use of philosophers and doctrines is again very, very important, because you have studied, so you have to quote the philosophers, you have to mention their doctrines. So this will definitely enhance the quality of your answer. Then balanced critique and dialectical engagement. This is very, very important. So you have to write both positive points and negative points, both merits and limitations. You cannot simply be one-sided. So that is very, very important. Then logically sound and insightful observations. This is again important. For example, sometimes personal opinion is asked. What do you feel, or what is felt? So there you have to explain accordingly. So personal insight should be quite relevant, quite logical, insightful. Word limit discipline is very, very important again, because 10% variation is okay, but beyond that, you are going to lose marks. And I have 10 marks question, 150 words, 15 marks question, 225 words, 20 marks question, 300 words. Now, for every question, no padding should be there. Otherwise, examiner will understand and going to reduce marks. Then every sentence must have some value, add some value. Unnecessary writing is, to be avoided. Then comparative insight is very, very important. And as I told, 2025, 2024 exam papers, they require comparison. Sometimes they require comparison with Indian, with Western. Sometimes they require comparison with in different philosophers in one school. Sometimes in different school, inter-school comparisons also. So accordingly, your notes also should be prepared. So integrate East-West or inter-school comparisons. For example, sometimes Descartes, Sankara comparison, sometimes Plato's and Nyaya, Kant and Gita. Then use comparisons to deepen. So see, sometimes in concluding remarks, if you use comparisons, or critical evaluation, if you use comparisons, that will add value to your answer. So accordingly, you have to decide. Then contemporary or scientific linkages, that also is very, very important. For example, wherever there is soul is being talked, or theory of anatta is there, so that needs to be linked with some scientific linkages also, or modern thought also. So this is also again very, very important. But then this may not be very relevant for all the questions. So wherever it's relevant, there only you have to do. Then relating to larger philosophical problems, this is basically in concluding remarks. So particularly in bigger questions, when 300 words, 20 marks question is there. So there you have to conclude relating to larger philosophical problems. Then integration of Indian and Western traditions, that I've already told. You have to be comparative, you have to be integrative. So your comparisons also should be organic, and it should not be stress comparisons. So accordingly, it has been, some examples have been given. Precise use of philosophical vocabulary, structured flow and transition. Now, what can be the structured flow and transition? First is introduction, then conceptual core, then analysis, then critique, then comparison, and then conclusion. So if you keep this roughly a structure, particularly bigger questions, because sometimes in 150 words, introduction or conclusion may not be possible, but then at least in 20 marks question, this flow has to be there. And you have to, in different paragraphs, you have to use flow markers, because then only your one paragraph will be linked with other paragraph. For example, however, thus. So these are flow markers, as you know. So this should be used wherever required, just to create a proper linkage between different parts of the answer. Then textual and scholarly anchoring. So you have to basically give some references also, because some you may be remembering definitely. So names of commentators, names of references, names of the those books, etc., which along with authors. So all this you can mention. Then ethical practical relevance. This is more important for GS4 paper. So here just mentioned, but paper 2 and GS4. But then you can just remember wherever relevant. For example, liberty, ethics, equality, all these topics are related in some way with constitutional morality or ethical dilemmas, etc. So there also it can be useful. Then visual structuring tools. This is again a very, very important part of writing answer, because if you don't do, even if you write a good answer, you may not draw the attention of the examiner. For example, underlining key terms and thinkers. Use bullet points, headings, etc., where they improve the quality or clarity. It's very, very important, because your presentation of answer is very, very important, as far as even though sometimes content is good, but if your presentation is not good, you may not get good marks. Then philosophical closure or conclusion. So end with a reflective insight. This is again very, very important, because if your conclusion is good, because I usually keep on telling, if your beginning of the answer or end is good or attractive or catchy, you are definitely going to impress the examiner. So this one should remember. Engaging introduction. I have just now told, engaging conclusion as well as introduction. For example, one example, open with sharp question or paradox or philosophical quote. What can we ever know for certain? So, see, this may not be possible in all the answers, but at least in a few it may be possible. So, this will enhance the quality of your answer. Conclusion, engaging conclusion, and introduction, at least in few answers, is going to definitely improve the quality of your answer. Then minimal concept maps. This is optional. Sometimes it's useful for some answers. So wherever required, you prepare. For example, karma cycles, soteriology, three bodies doctrine, etc. But then unnecessary if you don't use. I mean, unnecessary if you use, you may not get good marks. And usually examiners answer writing tempo is very, very important. First four answers, because little more time you can devote, because once you divide time equally, that may not be very. So first four answers quite important. Then again, final answers are very important. Midway you can be little weak also, but still, I mean, if you can write all answers good, which may not be possible for, I mean, most of the students, so this can be the good strategy to score better marks. Avoid overgeneralizations. Do not overstate historical claims. Avoid outdated terminology. So all these things are just a word of caution. So these are basically some, you can say, checklist for writing good answer. Now, along with this, one more thing I would like to tell: how an examiner will evaluate answer sheet, because that also, if a student understands, he will write in actual exam also, in practice tests also accordingly, and also uh, he will prepare accordingly. So this is again very, very important. Examiner's checklist, from examiner point of view, what is more important, that also is very, very important, because this I at least include in preparation strategy, because how to write good answers, what examiner's expectations. So basically this is examiner's expectations. So as you know, in any philosophy paper, paper 1 and 2, paper 2, there are 19 answers basically one examiner has to evaluate. So if I'm sure he's not going to give more than 1 minute or 1.5 minutes for each answer. Maximum half an hour, 25 to 30 minutes he will devote for evaluating 19 answers. So if an examiner is giving 1.5 to 2 minutes for each answer, I mean, practically, it's not possible for him to read each and every word of what you have written. So, accordingly, you have to understand his psychology also before trying to present your answer or write your answer. So, I have divided in 4-5 parts. So, just I will first explain briefly and then we'll try to elaborate and try to understand what is examiner psychology, what they require actually, and how you can impress the examiner because he is time constrained. He cannot reach each and every word what you have written. So, first point is visually clean and easy to scan answer should be there. Second point is directed exactly at the question. I have already just now talked about directive of the question. So, this is what it mentions. Third point is conceptually sharp in first 4 lines. So you cannot beat around the bush. You have to be very, very sharp and focused. And then close with a confident, reflective conclusion. So these are qualities of a good answer. Now we'll try to elaborate and try to understand. Now, what is in phase 1 examiner will do? First look. In 3 to 5 seconds only, he will give time for this. Visual clarity. So visually, is the handwriting easy to read? This is first point. Is the page layout clean? With visible paragraphs, breaks, margins, and no cramming. Sorry, yeah. Is the answer length roughly within the range? Because as I told, 10% here and there, it's okay, but then he will understand because accordingly, this space is also left for, actual exam. So he will understand whether the number of words are complete or sufficient or not. Is the definition or key concept introduced early? Ideally in first 2-3 lines. So these are subpoints of phase 1, which an examiner will not take more than 5 seconds to understand. If the answer is S for all this, then the examiner feels that script is well organized and worth focused reading. Then he will perhaps devote little more time also in reading your answers. So first, visual clarity has to be very, very important. Now, what is phase 2 for an exam? And if no, suppose this is not, examiner doesn't find this, then examiner may skim or approach with low expectation. So in the beginning itself, there is a low expectation. So you are not going to get more than 30-40% of marks in that particular question. And if continuously for 3-4 questions you don't get 30-40, your whole paper is also wasted. Then even if you last or some question you have written very well, you are not going to score 50 or 55% or 60% marks for that. So ultimately you will score 35 to 40% marks. Now what is phase 2? Phase 2 is directive compliance and structure fit. Has the directive been properly followed? If it is critically examined, if it is explained, if it is discussed, if it is differentiate, whatever has been correctly followed or not, that he will understand. Then are all parts of the question answered? Sometimes there are 2 or 3 parts in a question, but some students, they answer only one part and then keep quiet. Or one part they will be answering in 75% of words and then 25% second part. So this is not a balanced answer. In fact, I keep on advising students when there are 2 parts, you make for your answer also 2 parts and put headings there. So accordingly, you will be able to clearly divide your answer also. So examiner will try to find out whether all parts of the questions are addressed properly or not. Is the answer structured logically? Which means, as I told earlier also, introduction, body, conclusion. And wherever criticism or comparison is required, whether that has been done or not. So this is very, very important in phase 2. For this, again, examiner will give about 5 to 10 seconds. Then if answer is S, the examiner feels that candidate got the question and will likely award higher marks. If no, even good content may get capped at average marks. Now, phase 3. So if first 2 phases is roughly about 30 seconds, you can say, or 20 seconds, if answers are S, then he will see content quality, conceptual clarity, and philosophical understanding. So here, this is actual evaluation, basically, if you can say. And here he will devote about 40-45 seconds, depending if your answer is, earlier two parts are yes, then he may spend about 45 seconds or 1 minute also. If you are not, earlier parts are no, then he may even 15-20 seconds also, he will skip to some other answer. So in this, what he will see, is the core theory explained accurately and correctly? Are technical terms used correctly and confidently? Is comparison or criticism included? Does the answer go beyond reproduction? Does the argument flow logically? So these are content and conceptual questions. So this he will evaluate here in phase 3. If answer is yes, examiner takes the copy as philosophically sound and possibly topper level. So he is going to give about 60% marks in that question. He may give. And if continuously 3-4 questions you get 60%, overall also you are going to get 65 to 70% marks in that paper. If no, it may be seen as a rote learned or safe but shallow. Now what this is fourth and last, maturity, application and conclusion. This again about 5-10 seconds he will give. Is the philosophical maturity shown in the answer? Is there any contemporary or interdisciplinary discipline application has been mentioned? Is the tone philosophical and analytical? So if all these qualities are there, and is the conclusion meaningful? Does the answer end cleanly? If yes, so he will definitely go for A+ grade for that. And 75% or 70% or at least 65% marks will be awarded. So what is final examiner judgment, mental tags? Sharp and reflective, then safe and mechanical, vague or off track. So these 3-4 categories he will have. And if you are in sharp and reflective, then roughly you may get about 15 marks also out of 20. So this is what I just want to say. Now, this is where I will end today's class. So today what I have discussed is what should be the detailed strategy of preparation for the students, what are the books recommended, how you can analyze PYQs, how you can analyze syllabus, how then you can identify the topics for focus study, then particularly what is the good way of writing answers, what are the checklist for answer writing, and then finally what are the expectations of the examiners, so that accordingly we can prepare our notes, accordingly we can prepare ourselves and practice also, so that in actual exam all those things we can write properly. Now this is what I have to say today. From next class we will now start taking topics one by one. In Indian philosophy and Western philosophy, most of the topics I have covered in earlier classes. So I will this time start with philosophy of religion. So next class we will take up one important topic from philosophy of religion, and then we will try to come up with other topics as well. So thank you for watching today's video and joining the class. Thank you.